11 men lie in the dirt beneath the gnarled branches of an olive grove. The spring night air is cold against their skin. At the military reality of what was about to walk into that garden, you start to see something the physical reading completely misses. A spiritual anesthetic. A heavy fog designed to neutralize the only guards posted at the gate. When Jesus wakes Peter that first time, he doesn't just repeat the command to stay awake. He adds a terrifying piece of context. He reveals exactly what the darkness is trying to do to them. Matthew, chapter 26, verse 41. Jesus finds Peter asleep in the dirt, and he does not rebuke him for missing a prayer meeting. He diagnoses the invisible war. Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. In modern English, the word temptation has lost almost all of its lethal weight. We use it to describe the urge to eat a second piece of cake, or the impulse to buy something we cannot afford. It sounds like a weakness of appetite. It sounds like an invitation to misbehave. But the word Jesus uses in the dark of the garden is the Greek noun peirasmos. It appears 21 times in the New Testament, and it carries a violence that English translations mask. Its primary meaning is an experiment, a trial, a proving of material. In the ancient world, it was the word used for testing the purity of metal in a white-hot furnace, or applying intense stress to a ship's timber to see exactly where the wood will splinter and break. Years later, the man sleeping in the dirt would finally understand what the word meant. When Peter writes his first letter, he uses the exact same noun. The sleep in Gethsemane is not a biological failure. It is a spiritual casualty. The question isn't, why couldn't they keep their eyes open? He tells the early church in 1 Peter chapter 4, do not be surprised at the fiery trial, the peirasmos, when it comes upon you to test you. Peter had learned the hard way that the fire does not announce itself politely. It drops like a hammer. That root changes everything about the command. Jesus is not telling his disciples to stay awake so they can avoid having bad thoughts. He is warning them that they are standing inside a crucible. The heavy, suffocating atmosphere of Gethsemane is actively trying to dismantle their resolve, pulling them into the safety of unconsciousness before the real violence even begins. Temptation is not a gentle enticement to sin. It is a crushing pressure designed to make you abandon your post. To fall asleep in the grove is to surrender to the peirasmos. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The flesh wants to escape the heavy stone press before the weight comes down. The human mind chooses the comfort of oblivion over the terror of the immediate moment. The disciples failed the test because they did not realize they were taking one. They thought the real threat was the Roman soldiers coming with swords and torches. They didn't know the most dangerous enemy in the garden was the desperate human desire to simply go to sleep. But the anesthetic that dropped the fishermen? It's this. What exactly were they supposed to be watching for? Jesus was not asking for emotional support. He was issuing a wartime directive. To the dirt that night did not evaporate when the sun came up. It simply changed its delivery method. The sleep did not stay in the ancient garden. It adapted. It evolved. It moved into the modern world. You do not fall asleep in the cold dirt of a Mediterranean grove. You fall asleep in the sterile hum of an air-conditioned room. You fall asleep under the blue glare of a phone screen. You fall asleep to the endless, numb scrolling of a glass display. The spiritual anesthetic is no longer the heavy smell of crushed olives. It is the illusion of phantom safety. Look around you. Look at the architecture of your week. We build comfortable lives. We pad our schedules. We chase dopamine. We sedate ourselves with endless entertainment. We sedate ourselves with political outrage. We sedate ourselves with the soft vibration of notifications in our pockets. You think you are just winding down after a long day? You think you are just resting your mind. But the underlying mechanism is exactly the same as the fisherman in the dirt. Your flesh is trying to escape the press. Your mind wants to avoid the tension of the peirasmos. This modern numbness is not relaxation. He was naming a mechanism of survival that most believers do not even realize they possess. When he told them to watch, it is a tactical surrender. Jesus' command to watch is not a historical artifact left in the first century. It is an immediate, aggressive directive to you. You are standing on the edge of the exact same invisible war. The boundary between the visible and the invisible is just as thin right now as it was on a Thursday night in Jerusalem. The enemy does not need to crush you with fear. He only needs to distract you with comfort. If you are sitting in a padded chair, staring at a screen, you feel safe. You do not see the heavy stone coming down. You do not feel the weight of the test until it breaks you. Gregoreuo demands a raised weapon. Gregoreuo demands you stand on the wall. Gregoreuo demands you pull the bowstring tight and refuse the easy exit. It means looking at the mechanisms of your own distraction. It means noticing when you reach for the device to numb the anxiety pulling at your chest. It means recognizing the heavy spiritual fog trying to close your eyes and violently refusing to let it settle. You cannot avoid the crucible. You can only choose whether you face it awake or asleep. The disciples chose the anesthetic. He was not telling them to look at him. He was telling them to look at the invisible architecture of the moment they were standing in. They gave in to the heavy eyelids. They thought the night was quiet. They woke up too late. They woke up to the sound of metal scraping against leather. They woke up to the harsh smell of burning pitch. They woke up to a reality that demanded a sword they did not know how to swing. The sleep breaks instantly. Through the twisted trunks of the olive trees, a wall of fire is moving up the hill. The grove fills with the suffocating smell of burning pitch and the harsh metallic clanking of Roman armor. A detachment of soldiers, temple guards, and Pharisees pushes into the clearing, their torches casting long, violent shadows across the dirt. Judas steps out of the light. He walks up to the man he has followed for 3 years. He kisses him on the cheek. The numbness evaporates. The disciples stumble to their feet, their eyes burning from the sudden flare of the torches, their minds scrambling to catch up to the reality of the moment. The invisible pressure that pushed them into the dirt has suddenly materialized into swords, clubs, and chains. And in that moment of absolute panic, Peter makes a terrifyingly human miscalculation. To feel the weight of what happens in the dirt that night, you have to back up a few days. He reaches for his belt. He draws a sword. He swings the blade in the dark. The heavy iron catches the side of a man's head, Malchus, the servant of the high priest, and slices his ear clean off. Blood sprays onto the dust of the olive press. It is a moment of chaotic, desperate violence, born from a man trying to protect his rabbi from being taken away in the night. Most people read this and see a man showing fierce, misdirected loyalty. We see a brave fisherman who was willing to fight, a cohort of armed soldiers to defend his friend. But if you look closer at the sequence of events, you see the tragic anatomy of a spiritual failure. The sword is not a display of courage. It is the flailing reaction of a man who slept through his preparation, because Peter failed to fight the invisible war while he was asleep. He woke up trying to fight a physical war he could not possibly win. He swings a piece of metal because he does not possess the spiritual architecture to handle the moment he is standing in. He missed the peirasmos. He surrendered to the heavy anesthetic of the grove. And when the crushing weight of the press finally comes down, his only reflex is violence. Jesus reaches out in the flickering light. He touches the bleeding side of the servant's head and heals the wound. You have to leave the garden and step onto a different mountain, where the command was given for the very first time. And then he turns to his lead disciple, the man who was supposed to be keeping watch, and tells him to put the blade away. "Am I not to drink the cup the Father has given me?" he asks. Jesus can walk into the chains because he already fought the war. He fought it on his knees, sweating drops like blood into the dirt, pushing back against the darkness while the rest of his camp fell unconscious. He stayed awake. He kept the watch. And because he held the line in the invisible realm, he does not need a sword in the physical one. The soldiers bind his hands. They lead him back across the Kidron Valley, up toward the stone courtyards of the high priest. The disciples scatter into the dark, leaving the broken branches of the olive press behind them. But the echo of the command they failed to keep does not stay in the garden. A master left his estate and commanded his servants to watch the door. A thief approached at midnight and proved the danger of a sleeping house. A prophet sat on a mountain overlooking a temple and warned that the stones of their reality would soon come apart. A savior walked into a heavy olive grove and asked his closest friends to hold the line. The weight of the press came down. A master walks away from his estate. A thief approaches a house in the dark. 10 bridesmaids wait with clay lamps. A fig tree extends a green branch, and the physical flesh surrendered to the dirt. The invisible war was lost in the quiet, and the useless iron sword was swung too late. And a risen king left his people behind to stand as sentries on the wall until the sky finally breaks. Same command, same war. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the sword in the dark. The frantic, desperate swing of Peter's blade in the flickering light of the torches. He thought he was being loyal. He thought he was showing courage. But the metal slicing through the air was just the tragic reaction of a man who had already surrendered his true weapon an hour earlier under the trees. He fought a physical battle he could not win, because he slept through the spiritual battle he was supposed to fight. If you are in a season where the weight of your life feels like a crushing press, if the urge to simply pull out a screen, numb your mind, and surrender to the heavy anesthetic of distraction is pulling at you every single evening, the fatigue you feel is not just the natural end of a long day. It is the peirasmos. It is the crucible testing the timber of your soul. You cannot survive the violent collapse of the visible world. Same theme, same tension, same urgent command. In the days leading up to the garden, Jesus tells a series of stories. If you are asleep to the reality of the invisible one, Gregoreuo, keep your grip on the spear. Stand up from the dirt. Refuse the sleep. If this opens something up in how you read the scriptures, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels the heavy weight of the press right now. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who held the line entirely alone in the crushing dark hold your spirit steady when the night is heavy, and give you the strength to stand awake on the wall. They are not comforting stories. They are sharp. They are disruptive. They are designed to jolt the listener awake, and the smell of crushed olives lingers in the dust. A few yards away, their rabbi is kneeling in the shadows. Look at the sequence in Matthew 24 and 25. Look at Mark 13. Look at Luke 12. 2 men are working in a field. One is taken. One is left. 2 women are grinding grain at a millstone. One is taken. One is left. The master of the house returns at midnight. The servants are asleep. The door is locked. The opportunity is gone. Over and over, the parables share a single DNA, a sudden arrival, a hidden timeline, a catastrophic consequence for those caught unprepared. The air in these stories is thick with anticipation. You can almost smell the soot from the fading oil lamps. You can almost hear the metal scraping against a mud brick wall as the thief digs through. The command attached to these stories is always the same. Watch. Be on guard. Keep your lamps burning. But notice what is missing from every single one of these warnings. He never tells them when. The master's arrival is unannounced. The thief does not send a schedule. The bridegroom delays until midnight. The exact hour is deliberately obscured. This is not a mistake. It is an architecture. Jesus is stripping away the illusion of a timeline. He is removing the luxury of preparation. You cannot set an alarm clock for a thief. His face pressed to the ground, sweating drops that look like blood. He has given them exactly one instruction for the darkest night of human history. You cannot mark a calendar for a returning king. If you know the hour, you only have to be awake for the hour. If you do not know the hour, you have to change how you live entirely. Watching is not a scheduled activity. It is a perpetual state of existence. He is trying to build a new reflex in his disciples. He is training them to look past the surface of the present moment. The women at the millstone hear only the heavy grinding of stone on grain. But the ones who are awake hear the approaching footsteps of eternity. The homeowner hears only the wind against the house. But the one who is awake listens for the splintering of wood. The instruction to watch is not a call to paranoia. It is a demand for absolute clarity. To watch is to realize that the visible world is fragile. The invisible world is immediate. And the boundary between them is thinner than anyone thinks. He repeats this rhythm for days. Parable after parable. Warning after warning. He is handing them the keys to survive what is coming. The disciples hear the words. They nod their heads. They think they understand the assignment, but they think he is talking about a distant empire. They think he is talking about the end of the world. Watch. It is a command that echoes through the final days of his ministry. He says it in the temple courts while pointing at stones. They do not realize the timeline is already collapsing. They do not know he is talking about Thursday night. They sit on the ridge of the Mount of Olives. Below them, the city of Jerusalem spreads out like a white and gold tapestry. The evening sun catches the massive limestone blocks of the temple. Gleaming so brightly, it hurts the eyes. The wind off the Kidron Valley carries the smell of roasting lamb and wood smoke from 1,000,000 pilgrims gathering for the Passover. The disciples point at the stones. They marvel at the architecture. They trace the 50-ton blocks of white marble from afar. Jesus looks at the same stones and sees rubble. Not one stone will be left here upon another. He says. The disciples are paralyzed. They ask when. They ask for a sign. And Jesus answers with a cascade of cosmic unraveling. Nations rising against nations. Kingdoms crashing into kingdoms. The sun turning black. The moon refusing to shine. Stars falling from the sky like late figs from a shaken tree. The temple is not just a building. It is the center of their universe. And Jesus is telling them the universe is about to come apart at the seams. He reaches the climax of this terrifying vision in Mark chapter 13, verse 33. He looks at the four men sitting closest to him, Peter, James, John, and Andrew. He says it on the Mount of Olives while looking down at the city. He says it when talking about thieves breaking into houses. He does not tell them to build a bunker. He does not tell them to stockpile swords. He does not tell them to map an escape route to the hills of Galilee. He gives them exactly one defense mechanism against the collapse of the world. Take heed, watch and pray, for you do not know when the time is. And then he hammers it. He strikes the same note again and again. Verse 35, watch therefore, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming. Verse 37, and what I say to you, I say to all, watch. This is not a suggestion for the spiritually ambitious. It is the survival protocol for the coming dark. Look closely at the geography of this moment. They are sitting on the Mount of Olives. The dust beneath their sandals is the dirt of the Olivet Ridge. In just a few days, after a final meal in a borrowed room, they will walk back out into the cold night air. They will return to this exact same mountain. They will step into a grove of ancient trees, at its base called Gethsemane, and they will face the darkness he is describing right now. He is handing them the weapon before the war begins. But to understand how this weapon actually works, you have to look at the language he uses to forge it. Because when Jesus says watch in the middle of the night, and masters returning from long journeys at an hour no one expects, watch, keep watch, stay awake. Greek text. He is not telling them to keep their eyes open. He is giving them a word that changes the entire nature of the assignment. Read the English translations of Mark chapter 13. And the word watch feels almost entirely passive. You picture a man sitting on a porch, staring out into the dark, simply waiting to see if something happens. It sounds like an invitation to be a spectator. It sounds like a request for visual observation. But beneath the English text, the language is far more aggressive. The word Jesus uses for watch here is the Greek Gregoreuo. It appears 22 times in the New Testament, and its etymology carries a physical weight that the English translation completely flattens out. The word comes from the root egero, which means to rouse from sleep, to awaken, or to raise up. It is the exact same root used in the Gospels to describe a paralyzed man standing up from his mat, or a dead man being called out of a tomb. Gregoreuo does not mean to casually observe. It means to be in a state of strict, unbroken vigilance. It is the posture of a sentry standing on a stone wall. Same instruction again and again. Most people assume this is a physical instruction. You picture tired men with heavy eyelids, in the middle of the night, his hand gripped tight around a spear, knowing the enemy is already moving through the trees. If the way you are seeing these familiar texts is starting to shift, you are exactly who this channel is for. Hit subscribe and leave a thought in the comments. Because every week we dig beneath the English to find the original pulse of the text. So the Apostle Peter, remembers this exact word years later. When Peter writes his first letter to the early church, he warns them about a spiritual enemy prowling the earth, like a roaring lion looking for prey. And his specific instruction for survival in 1 Peter chapter 5 is the very same command his rabbi handed to him on the mountain. Gregoreuo, be vigilant, stay awake. That root changes everything about the command. Gregoreuo is not a passive request for attention. It is a militant demand for readiness. It means gathering every faculty of your mind and spirit, pulling them tight like a drawn bowstring, and refusing to let the cold night air lull you into a false sense of peace. It is an active, exhausting refusal to sleep when the world is coming apart. But a bowstring can only who just needed a nap after a long Passover meal, and a disappointed teacher who wanted some company in his grief, be pulled so tight before the wood begins to splinter. The disciples are flesh and bone. They have biological limits. And as they finally leave the upper room after the Passover meal and step across the Kidron Valley in the dark, they are walking into an environment designed to crush the human soul. The theory is over. The test is here. They cross the Kidron Valley in the dark. The water in the ravine is likely stained red, carrying the blood of thousands of Passover lambs, draining down from the temple altars above. They step out of the ravine and enter a grove of ancient, twisted trees at the base of the Mount of Olives. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and bruised fruit. The place is called Gethsemane. The name literally translates to oil press. It is the place where the heavy stone is brought down. It is the place where the fruit is crushed until the oil runs out. Jesus leaves 8 disciples near the entrance. He takes Peter, James, and John deeper into the shadows. And then, something shifts. The Gospels describe a sudden, violent descent of emotional terror. Mark says he became deeply distressed and troubled. The Greek implies a shuddering horror, the physical recoil of a man stepping to the edge of a bottomless abyss. He turns to the 3 men. We read the story of Gethsemane as a relatable tale of human exhaustion. But if you look closer at the cultural context of the first century, he trusts the most. My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death, he says. And then he issues the command he has been preparing them for all week. Stay here and watch with me. He walks a stone's throw away and collapses into the dirt. Look at the physical reality of this moment. Look at the men he brought with him. Peter, James, John. These are fishermen. These are men who have spent their entire lives pulling heavy nets out of the Sea of Galilee in the middle of the freezing night. Their bodies are built for nocturnal endurance. They know how to fight the dark. But tonight, their biology betrays them. Jesus returns to find them sleeping. He wakes them. He returns a second time, and their eyes are heavy. He returns a third time, and the failure is complete. Most people read this and feel pity. We see tired men who ate too much bread and drank too much wine at the supper. We excuse their failure because they were only human. But Gethsemane is not a sanctuary. It is a crushing floor. The heaviness pulling at their eyelids is not the natural exhaustion of a long day. Luke's gospel adds a chilling diagnostic detail. Luke says they were sleeping from sorrow. The immense weight of the press is not just falling on the rabbi bleeding into the dust. It is falling on the men under the trees. The atmosphere itself is saturated with